Well, good afternoon, everyone. Whether you're joining us in this Zoom room live or you're watching this workshop on YouTube afterwards, a warm welcome from all of us to What Do I Do with the English Degree? And this is a career workshop that's collaborated between SFU Department of English and Korean Volunteer Services. I just want to take the time to acknowledge the territory that we're currently located on. It's stolen and unceded traditional territories of the traditional Coast Salish lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, Kikite, Kwanlin, Semiahmoo, and Tawasin peoples on whose traditional territory our three campuses reside. Currently, right now, I'm on the mountain which the colonizer referred to Burnaby Mountain, and I'm grateful that I'm able to play, learn, and live in this beautiful land. And as an educator in a post-secondary environment, I constantly reflect on how we can decolonize the work that we do, the message that we share with students. And I want to just take a moment to invite all of us to reflect on a relationship with the land and a role that we could play to further indigenize this school at this university, this institution that we're in. And I've also included a couple of links if you want to learn a little bit more about the land that you're on and the traditional territories that they belong to. Feel free to check out those links as well once you receive the slides. Okay, so here we go. Just a quick introduction. My name is Albert. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a career educator from Korean Volunteer Services. One of my major role is also being a liaison between my team and the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. So I have the privilege and honor to be working with my very, very fine colleagues from Department of English, which I will now let them introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathryn. I'm sure I've met probably most of you. So I'm not sure how much I will be inputting in this as far as career options, but if you have any curriculum questions, feel free to ask when we have our discussion. And I'm glad that you could all make it today.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Salustros. I'm the communications coordinator for the department, and I am also here as an alumnus of SFU English, and that's mainly the role I'll be speaking to you in today and telling you about my career journey since I graduated, which has been varied. I've had a lot of different jobs over the years, and I'm currently really enjoying my job as our communications coordinator. But yeah, I'll tell you all about my experiences, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, and the three of us are the working team. Later on, we will also introduce all our panelists later on in the second part of the workshop, where we'll have a panel discussion. But it's been great working with Kathryn and Rebecca in putting together this workshop, we're very happy that you're here to join us today. A little bit of an overview. It's an absolutely action-packed workshop. We want to spend a few minutes, just to welcome you and share with you what's happening. And then in the first half an hour, I'm going to talk about just looking at how do folks discover their career pathways, but also from a practical perspective. I want to share with you 5 tools that can jumpstart your brainstorming process in terms of looking at your career. Then, and we will, but in the second half of our workshop is my favorite part, which will be the panel discussion. And we will have 4 panelists, including myself, to answer any questions that you might have that you want to bring forward. And I'll tell you in a second in terms of how you can raise your question in a little bit. And then just before we wrap up, I'm also going to share a little bit about some career resources and events that are coming up, and and we'll aim to end at around 3. But because this is virtual, I would we would like to keep the room open for a few minutes. So if you want to stick around and ask questions to any of us in a more informal setting, you're more than welcome to stick around for a little bit, just so that there will be some informal conversation as well. So let's talk about how we can interact with one another. So I don't know if you've used this platform before. It is called Slido. It is an anonymous platform that allows us from different places online to interact. So all you have to do is either if you have a device, you can scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com to put in the hashtag SFUENG. And Rebecca, would you be so kind to also drop the link in the chat as well? So if you have a browser window open, you can quickly just go to that link there. So I just want to give folks a few seconds just so that you can log in to Slido. And again, you do not have to create a brand new account, and it's completely anonymous as well. So it's super straightforward to access that. All right, so while you're doing that, let me just set up sort of the first question. Of course, even though we're all on Zoom, but I want to get a sense of the folks who are with us live here, where are you at with your degree? So the first question I wanted to ask, so if you are, I'm just going to quickly switch screen here. So if you are already able to log in, you can answer this poll question. I think some of you have already started. Instead of, again, first year, second year, I think those are a little bit hard quantifiers. I sort of leave it relatively open. However, your definition, are you just starting your degree? Are you halfway through? Are you getting close to graduate, or you have recently graduated? So I just want to give folks some time to answer that. So again, yeah, and I know that, a few of you are probably still logging on to Slido. So make sure you do that, because that's also give you a chance to participate in the Q&A later on. So please let us know if you have any technical issue as well. So technically, all you need is go to slido.com and put in that hashtag. All right, so as you can see, I think, quite a few of us, 40%, are getting close to graduate. And then the next tier, we have folks who are halfway through, but also a lot of alumni with us. So welcome, and a very small percentage of you just started. So again, regardless of where you are, you're very welcome to join this event, and we're so happy to have you, and it's good to get a sense of that. So allow me to sort of move on to the next poll question. You can answer that. I'm going to stay on this page. I know that when we're talking about this notion of career development, or career paths or career options, I'm sure different thoughts and ideas and feelings, emotions pop up your mind, right? So, so we just want to do a little quick check-in of like, okay, when we talk about this notion of career or career development, what emotions are you experiencing when you think about your future, right? So again, this is completely anonymous. You can, this is a really cool function of a word cloud where, as folks are answering, words will start coming up. So wow, I think many of you probably get the idea. So, so I just want to give everybody maybe 15-20 seconds to put in your thoughts, so that as a group we kind of know where folks are, where you are at with with that. Yeah, and it's looking great, and thank you for all of you who have just entered the words. And as you can imagine, given a word cloud, the more people using the same word, the word gets bigger. Forgive me for pointing out the obvious. Excuse me. Yeah, and this is great. Like, folks mentioned that, we are nervous, we have anxiety, there is confusion, worried, but there's also really interesting, you also see words on the other side of the spectrum where folks are excited, hopeful, and it's really interesting. I've often done this little check-in exercise with students whenever I do career workshop, and what is interesting is whenever you have a group this size, you do actually see emotions from sort of in different directions, and again, when I sit down one-to-one with students, they often, I often check in with them, well, how are you feeling? And sometimes they might, feel that, oh, am I the only one feeling this? And this exercise, I think, is a really good check-in to see, hey, whatever emotions that you're feeling and experiencing right now, you're definitely not alone. And, you know, and it's like, and this is the exact reason why, you know, I work with Kathryn and Rebecca to put together this workshop, is that not to say that, oh, by the end of this workshop, all of this sort of feeling of anxiety and nervousness will completely disappear. But if it, you know, but if it supports you just to nudge you a little bit towards the opposite direction, to become sort of resourceful, you know, hopeful, you know, and again, you know, it's not about changing things overnight, but, you know, if we add a few ideas, add a few resources that nudge you over to the other direction, you know, I hope that will be really worth your time. So again, you know, just want to say a big thank you for everybody who shared, because again, you know, you're definitely not alone, and you're in the right place, and we can have this conversation about career development, and hopefully, you know, even that just add a little bit more hopefulness back to your situation. Okay, so, oh, hang on. So let me actually go back to my slides here. Okay, hang on a second. Let me see. My PowerPoint window disappeared and then it's reappeared. There we go. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about discover your potential career pathway, because I really want to start by, you know, just sharing this sort of framework and paradigm that, you know, get us sort of thinking about, like, what are my career options and possibilities. So if you think about this whole process, it really comes down to two major areas of sort of thinking and reflection. And on one side, it is you, or we as the human being. Who am I? You know, what are my personal qualities? What are things that I'm really interested in? What is my life story? You know, again, you know, who you are as a person now is a collection of all your experience, whether it was you know, whether it was positive or negative, you know, and, you know, it's shaped to become the person that you are. But more importantly, what is it that you want in life? You know, what is it that you're most curious about? Are there any changes that you really like to see? So this whole process of identifying your career possibilities actually starts internally, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But once you sort of have a chance to sort of reflect on that, the second portion of that is really looking at what are the roles and, you know, that are available? Like, what do they look like? What are the different organizations out there? Like, again, in Canada alone, there's over 30,000. So that's 30 with 3 zeros of occupational titles in Canada alone, right? So what we're trying to see is that there are a lot of roles available out there. A lot of times it's not so much of we're running out of option, but it's the awareness of what options are available. So part of that external research and realization is, hey, what are the roles out there? What are the jobs, occupations that are out there? And what are some that really sort of align with who I am and what I want for myself, right? And the reality is that, you know, there's definitely more than one roles and options. And this is what this workshop is going to be about. How can we sort of support your brainstorming, support your research, so that you can discover more possibilities that align with who you are as a person? But the starting point has to be that, you know, that internal focus on what is it that you want, what is it that is important to you. And, you know, and this naturally leads to one of my sort of favorite career message to FAST students, or to art students in general, is that you are more than your major. So just to really, you know, allow me to unpack that for a little bit. So I don't know if it's handy for you to reach to the reaction button, but if you can just press any reaction, it could be any emoji, or, you know, or thumbs up or whatever. Put up your thumbs up or any emoji if you have a part-time job. And put up your thumbs up if you have a hobby that are seemingly unrelated to your major. Right? There are a few more of you. Excellent. Right? And what is, you know, what am I trying to say here is that, you know, and again, you know, we're talking, you know, even though this is a workshop organized by the Department of English, but some of you are major in English. Maybe there are some of you who are minor in English. But I guess what I want to say here is that, of course, your education is a big determination factor of your occupational choices and occupational possibilities, but it's not the only factor, because you're more than your major. Think about skills that you've developed in a variety of, you know, part-time jobs or volunteer roles that again, I use that in air quotes, seemingly, you know, unrelated, but, you know, but it is actually related, because is is manifested in the same person that you are. So what I'm trying to say is, as we are looking at career possibilities, of course, your education is a major part of it, but also think of, your previous experience, your hobbies, your connections, people that life experiences that you have, places that you have traveled, because they all come together. And I know that, for many of you, I'm sharing with something that you already know, but I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion where, our panelists are really going to be able to sort of share the story in the light of, some of these messages that I'm sharing. So, just want to highlight a few things, to think about, again, going back to this internal sort of reflection, right? What are your, some of your purpose and meaning? What are the areas of work that you're curious about and give you meaning? Like, again, if you think about all the changes that the world needs, from, climate crisis to food security to social justice, there's so many things. What means more to you? What gives you a sense of meaning and purpose, right? On top of that, again, this is definitely very applicable to art students, is that what are the skills that you have developed over the course of your degree? Maybe these are skills that are developed within courses that are, that are in the Department of English, but you have probably taken electives or minor that are also building your skills. So looking at it holistically, what are the skills and knowledge and experience that you can bring to an organization? And last but not least is, go beyond existing roles in organization, right? Like, again, we'll start with looking at what's existed, but depending on what research that you look at, a lot of sort of people who are, looking at the future trends is saying that, jobs that exist, 10, 15 years from now, maybe 20 to 30% aren't even existed yet, right? If you think about social media influencers, right? 10 years ago, even, not even 5, right? What are they doing, right? So again, what I'm trying to say here is that if the department approves the budget to buy a time traveling machine, it would be so great to take all of you to visit, in perhaps not even 5 years, maybe 3 years. And what that person will be telling you that they're doing at that moment, 3 years from now, might completely blow you away, right? So kind of keep thinking about your skills and knowledge, and, and look beyond than just existing roles and organizations. So on that note, I would like to share with you sort of 5 practical tools that would kind of jumpstart your research in terms of looking at, like, what are my options? What are my possibilities? So I'm going to keep flipping back and forth between my browser and PowerPoint. So there'll be some transition here. So the first tool that I want to share with you is, sometimes I tell students that even if you only have 3 to 5 minutes, you can check this out. So this is a tool called What Can I Do with My Degree in ... So this is a SFU developed resource, and the information that you will see there is basically organized under different faculty and departments. So if you go under Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, go under the Department of English, you will, for the first thing you will see is sort of possibilities that we've highlighted. So we've done some preliminary research through LinkedIn and through other resources, just to get people start thinking, right? But again, by no means this list is an exclusive list, as if these 8 or 9 things are the only ones that are available. So basically, I think what is, so check out this site, and some of these are related to your major. Some of these are beyond sort of the typical options, but there are more that, that requires further education, like a certificate or graduate degree. But this will sort of get you start thinking about some of the occupational titles that are related. So that's the first tool that takes about, really a few minutes just to check out. And the link is on the, the link is on the slide that once you receive it, you'll be able to click on it and, and check it out. So the next resource is called Career Cruising. So this resource, I'm just going to quickly show you. So as SFU students, you can use this username and password to check this out. So let me just quickly show you what it looks like and give you a super quick demo. So there we go. Hang on. There it is. So career cruising essentially is a database of occupational profiles. Like I mentioned before, in Canada alone, there are over 30,000 different occupational titles, and this might have a few hundred, right? But let's say, for example, you're fascinated about, I'm just going to pick one, maybe like a copywriter. That's kind of on your radar. So you can actually put in a keyword and look up any occupational profile. So in this case, there's only one, but don't worry. Allow me, sometimes it just means that it's not the best search engine in the world. But let me quickly show you what you can do. So obviously, this is a typical occupational profile where you can read a little bit of the job description, working condition. But what is really helpful in terms of brainstorming of your opportunity, of your possibilities, is actually looking at this related career section, right? So you see that, there's a list of other careers that are similar to being a copywriter, but very different. Right. So if you look at it from communication specialist to marketing specialist to PR specialist, they're they're similar in some ways and different than the others. So you can, sort of looking at this almost like sometimes I refer this to sort of like an occupational window shopping. Like you're not making any commitment, you're just checking things out because again, going back to the idea of learning more about what are the different possibilities and occupational titles out there would definitely add more sort of depth into your understanding into a particular field, right? So so again, definitely check this out. And there's also this other resources section that you can use career cruising as a springboard to other areas of the internet where you can look at some association and some information to give you a little bit more background information. Okay, so that's tool number 2, and that is career cruising. And tool number 3, instead of switching back and forth, is actually looking at job posting site. And, this is probably, you're no stranger to many of you in terms of looking at job posting site, but what information are we gleaning, right? So just before the workshop start, I actually put in copywriter and just pull up some some job postings. Like, again, I feel like this complements really well with the career cruising resource that we just look at because the occupational profile under career cruising is quite general, even with one occupational profile probably include 100 different jobs in many different organizations. So it's kind of like that's the view of the forest, where a job posting site gives you the view of a particular tree, right? So once you sort of identify some occupational titles, you can put it on Indeed, quickly look up some job titles, and it will give you an idea of some of the things about maybe some background of the role, what are the requirements are. And I wanted to sort of bring this to your attention is that, again, talking about, your education is not the only factor, right? Because they are looking at, it could be a degree in English or journalism or marketing or communications, but, they also look at, experience and other skills as well. So this is a really good way of understanding that. And they're also, again, 323 different jobs. But the key thing about looking at job postings is that you need to find sort of the keyword or the word that is often used within a particular sector to describe a particular occupational title. So this would give you a sense of, trying out different keywords is always nice so that it brings up different job titles so you can actually see some of the trees within this wider forest of a particular area that you are interested in. All right, so that's tool number 3. Again, I'm kind of doing this in a super rapid fire, style. So again, once you receive the slide, you'll be able to dig in a little bit deeper. But when we're looking at job postings, again, check out the qualifications. What is the role about? What are the responsibilities? But more importantly, who hire these particular roles? What are the different organizations, right? Because part of that has also to do with the pathways. Maybe in order to become in a certain role, you don't start there, but maybe you start by going in some more junior roles. So this also sort of understanding, the other, what are some of the pathways to work towards a particular role? But more importantly, some of the jargons as well, right? How did they talk about this particular role, or I should say keywords and things like that. So you can actually glean a lot of information just looking at job posting alone. And tool number 4 I want to share with you is called the LinkedIn Alumni Finder. Many of you, are probably wondering, well, what are some of the alumni that has gone before me in that way, right? Like have graduated in the program, what do they ended up doing, right? So I don't know if many of you are on LinkedIn, but I just want to say that even if you are just signing up for an account today, you are able to use this particular function to look up some research. So how it works is this. So let me quickly do a share screen. Is that when you're in LinkedIn, you want to search for SFU or Simon Fraser University, and pull up SFU, and looking at the page. Let me click that. There are several different tabs. And one of the tabs that you will see is right here called the Alumni tab. So when you click on that, you'll be able to see, a list of 142,000 alumni. So of course, it's impossible to look through that. So let's maybe why don't we narrow it down a little bit? So let's look at maybe folks who graduated in the last 20 years or so, maybe 10, and narrow that down a bit. So that narrows it down to, still 84,000. But once that, that you might want to key in on is you want to look at, well, what are the folks who graduated with an English major or minor? So you can go to this what they study field and add English. So maybe sort of the ones that are probably, oops, hang on a second. It might be helpful if I spell English right. So there we go. So, and then it keeps disappearing on me. There we go. I was having the same issue earlier as well. So let's say English. I think there's one that works earlier. Oh, okay. There we go. English language and literature general. So let's choose that. So as you, oops. I click what. So now that basically we sort of narrow it down to, recent alumni, English language and literature general, British Columbia. I don't think we need that. I think I clicked that accidentally. But you can sort of start looking at the list of folks who, who have that. And again, this search tool may not necessarily be perfect. So not every single person graduated, but I just sort of pick out a few while I was doing some prep work. So for example, I found Shyla in this particular list, and and realized that part of her education is that she is an English major and graduated back in 2019. So what is really interesting is that we're able to see Shyla's sort of path of her career journey. In the different things that Shyla has done over the course of the years, but more importantly, what Shyla is doing right now. On the other hand, I also came across Natasha's profile. Natasha is also an English grad. And again, looking at Natasha's sort of path. So what you will find really interesting is that everyone has a very unique journey. And, and maybe perhaps you might come across folks that might have a very similar path or a path or experience that really fascinates you. And, and this would be a great opportunity for you to perhaps reach out to them via LinkedIn and, maybe mention that, hey, I'm a current, students major, English major, or I'm about to graduate, I'm really fascinated about your career journey. Hey, do you have time to have a quick conversation? I'd love to learn more, right? So this tool is really good in the sense of getting a sense of all the different paths that is possible for folks who are here, and these are real people, right? I know that there's a part of me that a little bit uncomfortable because it looks like you are quote unquote stalking on people, but this is LinkedIn. I think the whole idea is for that professional connections and get to know other people who have a similar background as you are. So, and last but not least, tool, I have many other tools. I probably have like 10 or 15 of them. But if I were to sort of highlight one, highlight the top 5, I thought really hard. And instead of other tools, I ended up settling on this, and it is ChatGPT. And I know that this is a relatively controversial tool, especially in the academic world. But when it comes to jumpstarting your career development, it is actually a really good tool to brainstorm certain things, and allow me to illustrate that for you. So again, I did some prep work just in case if ChatGPT is a little bit busy. But for example, again, these are the things that maybe some of you already know now, but with ChatGPT, you can get some answers within, relatively quickly. And again, with ChatGPT, it's important to keep in mind that there's no guarantee that the information here is absolutely 100% accurate. You always need to sort of bring that critical mind, bring that sort of critical mind into this and do further research. But again, what is actually really helpful is from that brainstorming perspective, right? So what are most transferable skills as an English major? And, and think about this, right? There's actually a very long list. And again, I'm not going to read everyone out, but if you can think about sort of these 15 skills, I'm sure, as a group, we can come up with lots if you, give us half an hour. But, but this is a really good way to sort of thinking about that. But, but for some of us, we might have sort of a particular interest and situation. Like I said, you're more than your major. So hypothetically, I thought about, okay, what if I'm English major, but I really like to work with refugees, perhaps, right? What options should I consider, right? And what is really interesting is, again, there's no guarantee that this is 100% accurate, but I'm like, there may be some ideas that you never come across. Like, what is really fascinating is that if you look at, maybe many of us are considered sort of teacher or teaching, as a profession, but depending on who you teach, right? Supporting adult learner, newcomers, new Canadians versus working with children with special needs are very, very different, in terms of, so even within a particular area, you can brainstorm a little deeper in terms of who do I want to work with, what organizations that I'm interested about. And again, this is not meant to be a be all in all, but if it sort of jumpstart you, I never thought about being a, let's pick one, refugee case worker. And this gives you an idea of like, I wonder, what are the different positions out there that is working with the refugee case worker? And, you can go back to Indeed, kind of like what I talked about, and pull up, these different information, or go back to Career Cruising so that you can check it out. So again, none of these tools are meant to solve all the issues or do all the research for you, but if you're able to sort of try out different things and and work on and ask your different questions, hopefully some of these tools can complement each other quite well, and that will be able to help you to to brainstorm some ideas and thoughts that will give you some more ideas in terms of generating more possibilities for you as you do this research. So so let me just go back to my slide here. Oh, there we go. So we talked about LinkedIn, we talked about ChatGPT, and now I just want to say that like we only talk about online resources. We're barely scratching the surface here, but this is again meant to be a starting point in terms of identifying career possibilities and thoughts that you might not be aware of at this point of your time. But don't stop there. The question asked is, well, who can I talk to? What are some of the people that would be able to, who would be able to perhaps in a particular field that can help me to understand a little bit more about what I'm interested in? And more importantly, where can I get some firsthand experience through volunteering, through a part-time job, or through internship opportunities? How can I get myself into a particular organization so I can learn more about that, right? So these are all the things that ultimately will help you to arrive to an informed decision of where you wanted to go next, or some of the possibilities that you're interested. So speaking of people that you can talk to, we'd like to go on to the next portion of the second half of our workshop, which is our panel discussion. So before we reintroduce our panelists, introduce and reintroduce our panelists, I just want to bring your attention to Slido again. So basically what you can do is, if you go back to Slido again, this is the same event, so it's the same QR code, same link. And, if you are at the, if you're at the already there, you can look for the Q&A tab, or you can go back to slido.com, put in hashtag SFUENG. So the really cool functionality about Slido is that not only you can post questions anonymously, but you can also upvote questions. So as the moderator, I'll keep an eye on the Slido screen and I'll show the Slido Slido screen in a second, but but it will allow us to address and answer questions that are voted up higher. So feel free to go into the Slido and put in your questions, and then we will answer them right after the introduction. So all right, so we're so happy that, including myself, there are 4 of us on the panel. But our first panelist that I'd like to introduce to you is Christy Gertson. And Christy, would you like to introduce yourself to all of us? I just want to make sure. Let's see. Okay, are you able to unmute? Let's see. Hang on a second.
Okay, now I can unmute.
Yeah, yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm Christy Gertson, she, her pronouns. I'm a faculty member at Capilano University. I teach in the Arts and Entertainment Management program. And before that, I don't know, maybe we'll get a chance to talk about our whole career paths or whatever, but I also have a background in arts administration. And let me tell you, my English degree has come in very, very handy for all of it. So I look forward to chatting more. I'm also a writer. I'm a published novelist. So let's just say I use my English degree every single day of my life. So I look forward to chatting more.
So nice to have you with us, Christy. Thank you for being
having
here.
me.
Yeah, and I know Kathryn and Rebecca, we kind of introduced you already, but maybe a little bit more about sort of yourself and maybe your journey as well. I know, Rebecca, you wear multiple hats. Not only you're working for the Department of English, but you're also an English alum. Maybe we'll start with you, Rebecca, and then we'll go to Kathryn. Yeah, and tell us a little bit about your background. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got my English degree at SFU, and I minored also in political science. And then after that, I went to get a journalism certificate at Langara College. And I have done a lot of writing based on that. And then I did venture into education after getting a Bachelor of Education from UBC, and I did some secondary education teaching. I taught English and business, and then I moved into teaching adults, and I taught TESOL, and I taught English for speakers of other languages. And then I also did graphic design associate certificate from BCIT. I did that more recently to upgrade the skills I learned during my journalism certificate. So yes, and I've done writing of textbooks and was a senior editor for a publishing company. That was the job I held right before I was hired by SFU as its communications coordinator. I've done a lot of work for nonprofits, did blogging for the Rick Hansen Foundation, and I continue to do jobs for all kinds of corporations and nonprofits. I do editing for private clients as well. I've done, I guess, some very unusual jobs like writing trivia questions for cell phone software developers. I've done writing for museums, for exhibits on things like video games. So yeah, it's been a very, very varied career. So happy to answer any questions about any of that and more that I could go into over the past more years than I'd like to admit to.
Wow. And that's a really amazing, career journey that many chapters have yet to be written. So thank you, Rebecca. And Kathryn, you want to tell us a little bit about your path as well?
Well, mine is short and boring. I don't have anywhere near the experiences as my colleagues. But I did kind of choose, well, I was not forced, but steered in toward a different career than what I had originally planned. My degree is not in English. My degree is actually in criminology. And I really did want a career within the criminal justice system. It didn't work out, unfortunately. And while I was working at SFU, I was given this opportunity to do some advising when someone had to leave unexpectedly the position. And so I got the experience needed to do the job, got the job, which I did need a degree, but it didn't specify that I needed an English degree. So I applied for the job, got the job, loved the job, have never even wanted to step out of it. So you know, in the end, it was the right place to be. And like I said, these this is what you're probably going to find, you know, when you go into looking at your career. I just want to mention a couple things just while I have the floor here that we've already touched on, but you know, when we were looking at LinkedIn and how to, you know, locate people that you wanted to talk to about different careers. We also, what you may or may not know is English has an alumni network. Christy is actually a part of that network. And she's one of many people with so many different careers on that network. And you can just send me an email to be added to the network, and then you can go in and, oh, there we go. There's the page, and you can go into all these different areas and locate people, and then you can contact them and request a meeting, and you know, and they've all agreed to, you know, to be willing and open to students. So it's great, you know, if, it's a great resource that we have. And also, you know, this thing about the skills, you know, skill set. I mean, I get this question so much in my, you know, my position is, what can I do? What can I do? And I totally understand these feelings of nervousness and anxiety. And I imagine, you know, it could be friends, it could be family that's, you know, probably has voices in your ear like, what are you going to do with an English degree? You can't do anything with an English degree. And that's totally untrue. The skills that you get, you know, the reading, the writing, the public speaking, the analytical, the whole list are transferable to almost anything. So when I was starting to look for work, when I was looking for careers in the criminal justice sector, they didn't really care too much that I had a crim major. I mean, yeah, it was an issue, but it wasn't a major issue. And I found that most of the employers, they're looking for skills that can be used. So they're going to look at, when you're doing an English major, there's going to be so many skills that will, you know, be important for any job. And that's really what you should be confident about. Don't think someone's going to pigeonhole you because you have an English degree. You're probably going to have a lot more options than others. So, I mean, I can talk about that as much as, you know,
Yeah.
But I just want people to really take that into account and really believe that. You'll find as you start applying for jobs, I think, that you're going to be going to have a lot of respect, basically, coming from your chosen major and all the skills that come with that.
And thank you, Kathryn. Like, that's a great point, because I think it segues quite nicely to the question that has most upvotes so far. Let me read that question out in case, just for everyone. What are some examples of jobs that an English major should be able to obtain immediately after graduation with a bachelor's degree? You know, and again, you know, going back to what you said, Kathryn, about this, these are the skills that we have developed throughout, you know, our undergraduate degree in English. So yeah, so you know, what is, you know, I think this is closely related to that, because is, you know, depending on what you're looking at in terms of jobs immediately, right? So you know, so I just want to say, does any of you want to jump in and talk a little bit about that? What are some examples of jobs, you know, in the light of the skills that we talked about? Christy, I see you put up your hand. Yeah. Jump right in.
Sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute. It said, host, when I let you unmute. So yeah, if it's okay if I jump in, yeah, part of my role in my faculty position at Capilano University is I'm a practicum supervisor. So I help students get job opportunities and practicum placements and internships. And so I'll just say for English majors, anyone with any kind of writing skills, that kind of thing, social media coordination, social media type of jobs, they're everywhere. And like Kathryn was saying, all of these writing skills, anything to do with, writing, marketing, if you have social media skills that you use in your own life, is a fabulous entry-level job for English majors. And they're transferable, like Kathryn was saying too. Everyone was saying, your skills are transferable from industry to industry. Like I've worked in the arts, I've worked as a speechwriter for a university president, I've worked for a construction company doing social media and marketing and writing, sort of things that just came up. I worked for a library system. And it was all totally transferable skills. So social media honestly is a huge one that's available for grads. And not just that, but that I know a lot of places are hiring in that.
Well said, Christy, because I think what really caught my attention is not so much the where, but what skills do you need to use, just the diversity of the different sectors that you've talked about, like, that are maybe seemingly not necessarily on everyone's radar at the very beginning. But, last time I checked, it will be very difficult to find any industry that doesn't require any writing. It doesn't require any communication, right? So yeah, that's a really good point. Rebecca, Kathryn, you want to jump in as well? Any thoughts?
No, like my it's hard for me to give examples. It's just that, when I started out, I had the same list of anxieties as, many of you. Didn't know really where I was going, what I was going to do. And I just was applying for really everything. And I think, I did have a poster. It was on my door, and someone decided to walk off with it. That had a wheel on it with had probably 100 jobs possible for English majors on it. And I'm trying to get another copy of it and to keep in my office. So if students wanted to come and just look at that, that would be, welcoming for you to do that. I don't know how some of you that are earlier in your degree, I don't know if you've looked into co-op yet. With co-op, again, the list of jobs for English students that are available for co-op positions is long. It's long and varied. And if you were wanting to do co-op, that's a real great networking tool as well. And often you'll do a job that can often end up with a permanent position upon graduation.
Yeah, thank you, Kathryn. I also want to add, just to add on to what everybody's been saying is, I'm interpreting this question about sort of obtain immediately. So I thought about, again, sometimes it's not so much what other jobs, but think about what connections you have, right? Maybe you're currently having a part-time job within organizations that doesn't have much to do with, maybe it's a survival job, it's a part-time job, but think about what are some of the roles in the same organization that you might be able to apply because of your skills in development, right? So again, I feel like, especially, if you're a recent grad or about to graduate, the first job is sometimes always the most challenging, depending on how much experience you have. So keep in mind that, you might not always start with the job that you absolutely enjoy, dream about, whatever adjectives that you want to use. But it's all about getting your foot in an organization or maybe in an industry that, that you're interested. Even that role may not be the most ideal, but once you get into an organization, get into a particular sector, then it's much more easier to sort of, to leverage existing roles and continue to develop the skills and navigate towards a role that maybe you're more interested, or maybe you are, completely lateral move to a completely different industry, but a role with similar responsibilities and skill set, right? So it's never a straight line when it comes to your career development or career journey. Sometimes it's through a lot of twists and turns. And I know, Christy, you're nodding your head. I love to
like to kind of go in the teaching direction, a job you could get maybe not immediately after graduation, but very quickly afterwards, is get yourself TESOL Canada certified, which is quite easy to do. I mean, you can take the TESOL Canada certification through, even like school boards offer them through night classes or things like that. There's different ways you can get the certification, and then you can apply to teach with your degree and that certification overseas. And it's a great way to see different countries. I actually know somebody who's done it recently. She did a year of teaching in Spain, teaching English to high school students in Spain. And it was fantastic. She got to learn about a different culture. She got to, live in a country she absolutely loved. And she got teaching experience, which can be really valuable if you want to pursue teaching as a career. So yes, that's something that, you could do pretty quickly after graduation.
And to add on to that, if I may, Kathryn had also mentioned co-op, and I think that is I cannot agree more with that. Another great program, which all of you might already be familiar with, is Canada Summer Jobs, or youth. I think it's called Canada Summer Jobs. And that's how I got my start sort of in my arts career. Is I was like, okay, English degree. I was so glad I had it. I thought I might work in publishing, and English with a minor in publishing. And I kind of realized there weren't that many jobs at the time. Publishing was totally changing. But then I thought, I grew up in theater. I've always loved arts. And I just happened to see this posting on this amazing website, still available, called Alliance for Arts. And they have a great job board if anyone's interested in arts type of jobs, arts and entertainment. And there was a Canada Summer Jobs position. So this is right after you graduate, or when you're in the middle of school, and it was with an arts marketing agency. And so they did writing and grant writing and marketing for like all the festivals in town, for bands, for dance companies, theater companies. It was absolutely incredible. And that was just after I graduated with my BA in English. And so from there, I just built a network, and I still have some of them as clients for copywriting today. So I remember thinking, like, man, whoever says you can't do anything with an English degree doesn't know what they're talking about, because there's so much available. So I think something like Canada Summer Jobs is great as well for if you're graduating like in April, for example. You might want to start looking in March or so for the Canada Summer Jobs you can get right after. And there's so many incredible things there for English majors, or if you're interested in using those skills.
Now, that's amazing, Christy. Thank you. A quick follow-up question for you, Rebecca. I think one person asked, what is the certification that you mentioned about TESOL? I don't know if it's convenient. Would you be able to put a link in the chat maybe, so folks can follow up if they're interested? Yeah, I think it's TESOL. So Google that. I think it's quite. And the next question I wanted to address is kind of like really segue nicely into what we've been talking about so far, even though the question was addressed to Rebecca, but I think all of us can answer it. Like, how did we, in our journey sort of transition from job to job? Like, what is sort of the connection that allow us to sort of seemingly, or fluidly move from sort of one role to another? Like, what factors helped you to be successful in changing your career several times? Or is it actually changing your careers, right? Like, I know that, Rebecca, you and I have conversations about, it sounded very different, but there are a lot of similarities. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think, for all of you all in the panel, including Kathryn, like, feel free to chime in, because I absolutely love this question. So thank you for posting that.
Yeah. I mean, I will say one thing that I think is really important as you're starting your career is to keep a portfolio, a record of everything you do. Okay. So for me, a portfolio means a writing portfolio and a graphic design portfolio. Okay. And so I did start that early on. And I could show work I'd done from job to each employer. Okay. So with graphic design, I have my own website. Okay. So you can put with graphic design, I have this thing called Adobe Portfolio. So I have a sampling of my work on that. And I have that on my website. You can, of course, have a blog on your website. You can showcase like recent articles. Albert was talking before about LinkedIn. You should post articles that you have written on your LinkedIn profile, have those up there. You can also include like your best ones in the featured section so employers can see those. But that was kind of one way that worked really well for me to transition from job to job, was to show people, hey, I did this in my last job. This is how I can transfer my skills into your job. So for example, like, I guess the most important transition was going from teaching to writing. And so the way I did the major transition when I decided I wanted to write full time and I didn't want to just do it as a freelance was to become a curriculum designer. Okay, to write curriculum for schools. And it was saying, hey, I have teaching experience and here's writing I've done. Okay. How about I put those two together for you and I'm help write you some textbooks, for this school I was working for. And that's kind of was my entry point into writing professionally. Okay. And so it went from writing textbooks for school and then working for a publisher of digital marketing textbooks. And also, since it was a small business, I also helped them do social media marketing, do SEO landing pages, do newsletters, email blasts, all the kind of things that is also part of communications. So then, I expanded that skill set as well, because trust me, when you work for a small business, you end up doing everything. You do more than you think you're ever going to do because you've got like such a small number of employees, right? But it's a great way to build skills, and you learned a huge amount. I learned so much from the people working in that company, right? But literally save everything you do. And also, if you do volunteer work, like I have been doing volunteer work for a nonprofit for the last 4 years, I learned stuff from that as well. And, I'll do like some writing stuff for them for nothing because I want to help them. I keep a record of that. Also, one weird experience, it's kind of a weird experience, but it was really something I think that I want to share with you, is I once applied for a job and I didn't get the job, but I had given them samples of some of my writing. And the job I'd applied for was more of a fundraising job, and I didn't really have the fundraising skills, but they liked the writing samples I gave them. And they said, you know what, you weren't right for the fundraising job, but we'd love for you to be a guest blogger for us over the next year. And I got pretty decent money from them. I think I did about 10 posts for them over the course of the next year. I got really good exposure because their social media had a lot of views. So, it's funny, but you might think, wow, I didn't get a job. It's terrible, but something good may come out of it later. So don't get too sad or depressed sometimes if that sort of thing happens. It may come back even later in life to kind of help you out.
Yeah, wow. I love that message. Better to show than tell, right? And the work speaks for themselves, so collect whatever work samples that you're able to have, because that is such a powerful testament of your ability. So, Christy, do you have anything you want to add? I know you've been, nodding
Yeah,
your head. Yeah,
I'm
love to
enjoying
hear.
this yeah, I'm enjoying this conversation so much. Yeah, so I just totally agree with Rebecca there on gathering all your writing samples together for any and graphic design or anything, any samples that you do of anything, because it's true, like that just helps you from, that's helped me everywhere from part-time jobs, full-time jobs. I've done a lot of contract work in my life as a copywriter, grant writer, and so having any samples of things I've done in the past, I know has helped, that will enormously help you get other gigs. Like I know that was in terms of transitioning sort of from jobs to jobs, like everything's transferable, right? So when I went from working in arts marketing to being a speech writer for the president of UBC for a while, which was to get my master's paid for, by the way, but it was a fun gig anyways. But I brought all my work I had done in the arts, everything from write-ups about films to websites I'd written for artists to research reports and grants I'd done. I brought all of that as a digital portfolio, and I know that helped me get hired into that speechwriter job, even though it was so unlike what I'd done other types of writing. But like Rebecca was saying, they can see your writing style and they can like that and kind of know, okay, you'll be good for this. So yeah, it's great to have that portfolio from job to job.
All right. Thank you, Christy. I know there are some questions that are still coming up, so why don't we continue to move forward? So on one hand, we talk about, transferable skills, and then there's this question that this person asked, what about jobs that are less English heavy? Like maybe I like to interpret it as also sort of less communication, less writing heavy. So feel free to correct me if I misinterpret your question. And this person sort of like HR and social work, etc. What are your thoughts?
Just as someone who worked in some social work kind of areas when doing volunteer job, looking when I was doing my crim degree, I don't like that term English heavy, because in HR and especially jobs like social work, they are going to be so not light on the English side of things, because social work, especially that kind of job, it's a lot of report writing on cases, and so you're going to have to do a lot of writing. And I would imagine it's the same with human resources. There's a lot of issues that have to be explored, and probably written reports on different employment issues. So I'm not sure what English heavy or not English heavy would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Kathryn. Yeah, because I'm thinking about that too. But I think this goes back to my point earlier about discovering your career possibilities. Is that I think, I imagine, if I were to sit down with this person, with you one-to-one, like I said, the person who raised this question, I love to think a little bit deeper. Like, what do you mean by English heavy, right? I'll give myself an example. I'm never really the best writer per se, right? Especially when it comes to writing sort of prose or poetry. Like, always gets me nervous when I have to do that in high school. But what I realized is I have no problem like writing reports, just basically like describing what happened, because part of my career journey is to be a career coach, and I have to do a lot of report writing, like just describing what I did. Like I have no problem with that, right? So I think it's really worthwhile to say, like, I'm definitely a different person than you are, but it'll be worthwhile to dig a little bit deeper on, what is a particular aspect, maybe it's not creative writing, or maybe it's not writing, but there are other roles that they're dealing with, words perhaps that doesn't require as much, so I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is it will be worthwhile to have a more conversation on, on this notion of English heavy. Any thoughts, Christy, Rebecca?
I think, yeah, I might be, again, misunderstanding the question too, but, I think in terms of jobs that don't require a lot of written communication, but still, every job requires communication, right? But one thing I found that oddly enough, my English degree was extremely handy for was I've done a ton of event planning. I've done a ton of event planning jobs. Like I've done opening night galas and, huge donor events and all manner of events that kind of come with a communications director kind of territory. They're often intertwined somehow. And so that didn't have a ton really of written work, but so much of it was the interpersonal communication, which I think an English degree or an English major gives us as well. And event planning, again, every industry requires events, right? Every industry needs events like conferences and from any level. And that could be another great entry-level job right after university, and you can just go from there. So that might kind of answer two of the questions, but event planning, I think verbal, maybe not as much written communication.
Yeah. And that's such a great point, Christy, because also remind me to sort of just going back to the point earlier is that you are more than your major, right? Obviously, there are skills that you've developed throughout your undergraduate degree, but think again, be interesting to hear more like Christy, like when did you start doing some event planning? Did you do that through your official coursework, or is that your part-time job, or is this something sort of, grew from sort of like a one small part of your job responsibility and it gets bigger, right? I guess what I want to highlight is that, you're more than your major, and and there are other aspects, that skills that you've developed, even quote unquote unofficially, or you never really got paid for certain skill set that you do. Again, I'm sure before every experience, event planner, they started planning just by planning birthday parties for their friends, like we've all done that, right? So I guess what I wanted to say is what started as just hobby and things that you like to do, and the line between that and somebody paying you sometimes can be pretty fluid, right? So Christy, yeah, you want to jump in that? I'm implying a lot of things, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, it's a great question. Yeah, so things like exactly, so things that kind of come along, right? I didn't expect to ever be like an event planner as part of my job, but when I worked for this arts and entertainment marketing agency, which I got through the Canada Summer Jobs, and I ended up working there for 5 years. After that, I got hired on. They just part of it was just part of marketing I found is putting on events. And so I just didn't know that. I started with writing, doing grants, copywriting, that kind of thing. And then we would do things like we would do big press, we would help with like press junkets and press conferences and that kind of thing. So we had this major theater artist in town, Robert Lepage is his name, doing a show. And so, we were at the Vancouver Playhouse, one of their salons. We set up all the catering, all the food, everything, welcomed all the reporters, and so that was kind of my first introduction to it. And I was like, oh, right, we do this kind of thing as PR people and communications people, and so I just realized I actually quite like doing this. And then it just ended up that when you do communications, you just often do events. So like I remember back in the day when I was planning my own wedding, I remember a bunch of my friends were planning their weddings too, and they were all stressed out, right? And I was like, I was totally not stressed out, because ordering catering, booking a venue, it was like nothing to me. I was like, I'm used to this, no problem. This ain't my first rodeo. So anyway, so so it's like, I don't know, you just like you were saying, Albert, you realize things along the way, and I just learned on the job. It wasn't something I learned. I just learned on the job from great mentors.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. We have a few more minutes and we still have 3 questions. So I still want to get through them because I want to honor folks who raised them. So I will bring those questions. So this one start with, addressing Rebecca's point, but I think all of us can jump in and answer. So, but Rebecca, feel free to be the first one. From Rebecca's point of view about abroad jobs, do you think it would be more beneficial to work abroad immediately graduating or after building a resume locally first?
Okay, so what I'll say is if you're thinking about pursuing an education degree or getting into PDP, I would check with the education advisor to see what they advise in terms of getting into the program. However, if you're just thinking in general, I don't really think it matters. Like if you're thinking about, what would look good on a resume, I don't think that matters at all. Like I think your experience is just to, work with people and to teach and to, just work with teens or work with kids, whatever your preference is, maybe even work with adults, then I don't think it matters. You'll want to do some research on the different countries that are available. There's certainly countries that recruit a lot more. Like, for example, Japan has the JET program, and I think they put out a call about pretty much every year for students to come and teach in Japan. Korea as well. Also, I believe Brazil, like other South American countries, is quite common. And then, yeah, there are some European countries that put out a call as well. So, do your research into the countries, see if there's a particular country that you want to go to that maybe you feel like, hey, I would like to maybe learn Japanese, or I would like to learn about Japanese culture. So it would be great for me to go teach in Japan, for example. I personally know a lot of people who really benefited from teaching overseas, and in particular, I do know a number of people who've been to Japan and who've benefited, people who actually went to Japan to teach there and they didn't come back. They decided to live and stay in Japan forever. So, it's was that good of an experience. So, I think the two things I have to say in my life I've never regretted are my education and travel. So, I've gained a lot from both. So I think it doesn't really matter which you do first. You can do teaching over there and then come back here and teach people who want to learn English as another language over here as well. So it's kind of up to you. Unless you're applying to a particular program, then I think you need to speak to the advisor of that program.
Yes, and just to further that, I also have a friend who went to Japan and never came back and is now married with 2 children and loves it there. But I think doing it immediately may just be something it isn't required, but may just be more desirable. The individual that my friend, he had graduated with a degree in geography, and he was essentially stuck. And I don't want to increase your anxiety by using he is an example, but if you do find yourself stuck and not getting what you want, that might be a way to go, is to look into going abroad to teach English. And the experience would be invaluable, and you'd be working, and then while you're there, you can kind of look forward to your next steps, while having what I think, from what I hear, is an amazing experience. Yeah. I've never heard anything negative about it. So, it's definitely an option, an available option if other things aren't immediately available to you.
Yeah, no, Kathryn, I just want to echo what you and Rebecca are saying. I think I like to elevate it to even a broader point, right? Like, again, whether it is better for, any of you to go abroad or stay local, it's really up to your situation, right? Of course, there's tremendous benefit of going abroad, but at the same time, this options, the options are, traveling abroad is also expensive, but I wanted to say that if there's one key thing that I learned from all of your stories is that getting that firsthand experience is important, whether it is, your first job, or, working abroad outside of country. Because one thing is really interesting is that right now at this particular point of your, of your career juncture, you might not be able to see very far. I know that sometimes you go into interview and people ask you questions, well, where do you see yourself in 3, 4, 5 years? But, but just listening to, to Christy's, Kathryn's, and Rebecca's story is that if we were to take the time traveling machine back to when they first started, they might be able to tell you, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next. But what is really interesting is that it's the journey progress. You know, there are doors that are, you know, that they encounter. They're like, oh, should I walk through this? Should I try this? Or maybe there are opportunities come up that they didn't know before. And then they walk through that door, and then that leads to another doors. I know in hindsight is a really interesting, adventurous sort of journey. But I think, you know, if we were to visit them back in those days, they would not be able to tell, yeah, this is exactly like in the next 10 years, this is where I think I'm going to go. So a lot of this is sort of like get your foot in the door, try something new, take a step forward. And because when you do make that step forward, other options open, other possibilities that you weren't sure before. So part of that, I guess, as a career educator, is I think being intentional about your research, about, you know, about looking at things that you're interested, but don't necessarily worried about you have to figure out your next 10 years of your life, right? It's good to have a direction, but so just like when you're planning for a trip, you have some itinerary, but there are perhaps, you know, in the way you run into a cafe or you talk to a local person, here I am talking about traveling metaphor, right? That might lead you to a different journey. And sometimes career is kind of like that as well. Christy, did you have something you want to chime in, or I was maybe I'm reading too hard on your facial expression?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, unfortunately, I've got to run in a minute because I gotta go get my kids from school. But I did put something in the chat about someone had asked about nonprofit jobs. So I put, probably everyone might know about this, but charityvillage.com is a great place for nonprofit jobs, and also the aforementioned Alliance for Arts job board is great for any nonprofit arts type jobs. I see there's a couple communications coordinator type jobs there too.
Yeah, no, and thank you. Yeah, and thank you again for joining us. Again, Christy, we don't want you to be late to pick up your, you know, to pick up your kids. So yeah, so feel free to, you know, disconnect when you need to. But you know, but yeah, I think we're wrapping up as well. So
it was great to see you, Christy.
Yeah, so great to see you. Thank you so much for having me. This was
No
great.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Christy. Yeah. So I think what we're going to do is, I think it's at 2:50. I think what I might want to do is I wanted to just highlight a few resources that we want to share with you. And then, you know, once we sort of officially wrap up this workshop, you know, we can stick around. For folks who want to stick around, we'll keep the room open. If you want to ask questions, or if you want to, you know, and we'll unmute everyone so that folks can answer, you know, I guess folks can talk and have conversations as well. So a couple of things, you know, Kathryn already brought to our attention. Within the Department of English, there is the English Alumni Network. Kathryn has already so nicely introduced it to us, and there's also a link on the slide. You can click on that to get more information. So definitely check this out. It is tremendously helpful resource just to connect with someone and have those conversations. And a couple of other things as well. Within the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, I also offer regular workshops. So there are a couple of workshops that are coming up on resume and LinkedIn, as well as interview and networking that will be offered in the month of October. So I've included a link there. Obviously, it's free of charge. You just have to register, and you'll be sent a Zoom link that you can participate on October 3rd and October 11th. So again, I included the URL there with our online workshop calendar as well. So the next one coming up is Career Festival. So in the fall semester, again, in mid-October, 17th and 18th at SFU Burnaby, we will be doing a massive career festival where we will have recruiters and employers on campus to talk about the job opportunities, but there will also be an education component. So I definitely want to invite you to come out. It's more than just a good old career fair. There will be a lot of fun components, a lot of games, a lot of things that you can participate. So for more information and also the list of organizations that will be participating, check out the link here as well, and you will get more information about that. Again, completely free. And it's happening in SFU Burnaby from 10 to 4 on October 17th and 18th. So find out for more information. Last but not least, we also have a program offered to all SFU students called the Career Ready Changemaker program. Again, just looking at your career possibilities, not just through your education, not just through your interests, but looking at changes that you would like to make, and how to look at the skill set that you have and say, well, what are some of the areas that I wanted to be part of the solution, the part of the change, using your skill set, as an English major, or using your skill set in whatever ways that you've developed, throughout your life up to this point. So this is a self-paced or self-directed program, so you can basically sign up, and and there are and there'll be more information on the program website available. So definitely check this out, and it's totally free for SFU students and alumni. Yeah, the last thing I just want to say is, if what I really appreciate about this afternoon is that that we have Kathryn, the academic advisor, we have Rebecca, who is a communication specialist, and myself as a career educator. I think it takes a village to support a university student. So we want to say that with all your career development needs and questions, we're definitely here to support you. So obviously there's a website, but also follow Career Volunteer Services on our Instagram, which is @sfu.careers. We also have a YouTube channel where you will be able to see some interviews that we've done with students about their thoughts and ideas. And yeah, Kathryn and Rebecca, do you have anything to add if students want to reach out to you? Of course they know you, Kathryn, right? So
probably, yeah. Yeah, so I'm available for 4 out of 5 days. So yeah, you can definitely get in touch with me if you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rebecca,
and my hours are
thoughts?
posted on my door, and of course anyone can email me at any time, so I'll put my email in the chat.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, the slides will be available soon after the the workshop's over in the next couple of days. But I just want to take the time on behalf of our entire working team. Just want to say thank you for all of you to be here, and we appreciate your questions. We appreciate your your input. So speaking of input, I like to just share with you a quick poll, because again, this is we wanted to continue to provide career development support for students within the Department of English. So we wanted to just ask you a few questions. So again, this poll shouldn't take anything more than a couple of minutes, but if you can give us some feedback and and thoughts, it will really help us help this working team, me with Kathryn and Rebecca, to continue to plan events like this to support all of you and folks within the Department of English. So if you can fill that in, that would be great. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop the recording. So thank you for those who are watching on YouTube, and then we can continue the conversation in a more informal way. So let me just quickly do that.